Welcome, everybody, to DAT Poker Podcast, episode 75, video version 3. This here podcast is presented by Daniel Negreanu's Masterclass of Poker, masterclass.com. Head on over there, check it out. It is the #1 masterclass available, given that there's some big names there. That's quite the accomplishment. I am your host, Dave Schwartz, alongside the producer of this program here, Roscoe P. Coltrane.
Sometimes it's just great to watch.
Terrence Chan.
Was that occasional hockey announcer Lon McCarron in there? I'm sensing a theme among our address wear. What could it be?
We'll get to that in a quick sec, in a hot minute. And in Las Vegas, Mr. Daniel Negreanu.
What's up, gents? Got an idea to play a little. If you remember the show, Name That Tune, right?
Yes, of course.
I'm thinking we could do that like next week or something with poker players. Name that poker player, and then we'll gamble on it. But for this week, we're going to name that hockey player from the Ottawa Senators.
We should first say hockey is back. So we decided to all don our hockey jerseys. Well, it's kind of back. NHL President Gary Bettman came on and said there will be training camps in July. Playoffs start at the end of it in some weird, wacky 2014 format where 8 teams have to play their way into the Magical 16, and then there's a Stanley Cup bracket playoff after that. So we're all excited. All the Canadians around the world jumping up and down because hockey's coming back, even though how the heck it's going to work, we don't know.
There probably won't be any games in Canada, oddly enough.
Right, yeah. So Las Vegas might be a hub city. You're going to have to try and weasel your way in to be like the one fan that's allowed in there, Dick.
No, I'd much rather watch it from home than be like the only dude there. That sounds awful. I'm not home for a while. The only trip I'm going to make is either Mexico or Canada to potentially play in future, GG Poker Series.
So we're going to have the hockey jersey challenge. Get us going.
All right, so let's do that. What the hell? I'll give you the clue. So the way that Name That Tune works is usually how it works is Adam would say, I can name that player in 7 clues. And then Terrence would say 6 clues. And then a Chinese auction. And then if Adam says 5, Terrence, you have to say 4. Say, all right, name that player in 4.
All right.
Let's
Are we going? $20 head to head, me and Terrence and Ross. Well, Ross might have a tough time because I'm guessing it's a little bit older.
It can't be that old. It's a Senators jersey. Like, how old could it possibly be? Like,
I don't think Ross. I don't think he was a big hockey fan 10 years ago. He's found the Chicago's, as he likes to call them, lately. So I think it's probably just fair if you and I go for $20. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree.
So we'll just do it this way. First, one of you to blurt it out after the clues. Okay. So I'll give a clue. I'll give a pause, and then you each get one guess after each clue.
Hands up. No Googling.
Yeah. So basically, I'll name the first clue. You each get one guess. Whoever says it first does. Then another clue, right? First clue. He was the 3rd overall pick in 2014 by the Ottawa Senators.
Wait, can we guess? Just stabs in the dark?
We just yell things?
You can go
Spezza?
after one guess.
Is it Spezza?
Older. He's older than that. It's 2014, you said?
2014.
Okay, so he said Spezza.
3rd overall pick, 2014.
Yeah.
Okay, next.
All right. He scored 20-plus goals in 4 straight years for the Ottawa Senators.
Wow.
Wow, pretty good.
2014. 2014, 20 straight goals. How do we not get this?
I'm so bad with the modern stuff. I needed it to be like a early 2000s or late 90s player.
Next clue. Let's go for next clue.
Okay.
Before he played for the Ottawa Senators, the team he played for was the Las Vegas Thunder.
Oh, I see. He wasn't drafted by the Senators. That's what it's
drafted by the Senators.
Okay.
Las Vegas Thunder. We're not an NHL team.
The IHL. They played at the old Orleans Hotel rink, right?
So any guesses?
Not yet. No.
All right. So he played 10 seasons in Ottawa, then 2 in Montreal, and 2 in Nashville.
10 in Ottawa.
Kyle Turris.
Nope.
Oh. Nashville. Played in Nashville, Montreal.
Wait, he was drafted in what year was he drafted?
2014.
This is
How could he be drafted in 2014 and play 10 seasons with Ottawa?
I actually got the. It wasn't. It was, sorry, I meant 1994.
How
does somebody get drafted in 2014 and play?
Oh my God, Negreanu! No wonder we can't get it.
Yeah.
Okay, 1994 he was drafted. Okay, let's go back to this. 1994.
Alexei Yashin.
No.
No, he didn't. 2000, position. How about give us a position?
All right, I'll give you He was from the last clue that I have on here. He's from Czechoslovakia back then or whatever. He's a Czech player.
Oh.
Check.
Oh, geez.
Nashville.
Check.
Wow,
We're going to be so
stumped.
mad.
I
We're going to be
can't
so
believe
mad.
This is a good one.
It's good for people at home.
Yeah, they're going crazy. They're mashing they're looking up on Google, calling us
Czech
idiots.
players.
14.
Czech players.
Number 14 he wore. I don't know if that's going to help you. That's hard to
Number
help.
14. I don't have it. I'm without.
What were the
I guess.
teams? So it was Ottawa, Nashville, and which one?
He played 10 seasons in Ottawa, 2 in Montreal, and then his last 2 in Nashville.
I don't got it.
No.
Reveal
Oh,
time.
wait, you're right. No.
Here we go.
No, just one letter at a time.
We're peaking. Who?
Oh, Radek Bonk! Radek
Oh,
Bonk, one of the greatest draft picks of all time.
Oh,
I had him on my fantasy team. That's why I got the jersey. I got a jersey from every team. Any guy that was on my fantasy team, I had his jersey.
All right.
you know
so
what you should? The clue should have been Harley.
Adam will know this, but what jersey am I likely to wear? And think about me as a person, Daniel. What Canuck? What former Canuck?
Oh, I was gonna go with like Jet Wu or some Asian.
No.
It's not a race. It's a Canucks jersey.
I was going
I
to
think-
racist.
I think I got it. Should he rest in peace?
Yes, he is a rest in peace.
All right, that's Rick Rippon.
Yeah, that's the one. Rick.
All right,
Rick
I've got the.
If
how about
you
this one?
know anything about me, you got to know that a really undersized guy who fought everybody was going to be
Yes.
the jersey that was going to be on the back.
Yeah.
I've got the Canucks 8 going. Could be like
right.
Rick Blight, but it's not.
I've seen it too many times. I'm going to recuse myself.
Okay. I'm not. We're not going to play that game anymore. But it is Big Willie style. Big Willie Mitchell. All right. So we've got a lot of stuff to talk about in poker this week. Generally, these are a struggle to find things to talk about. Not this week, because in this downtime, obviously, everybody's at home playing online, and something went sideways this week online. We're going to be, and this refers to the tweet that was sent out by Bill Perkins last Saturday, I believe, who was quite upset that he felt he was cheated in a private online nosebleed cash game on a private app, and he's going to join us. We're just waiting for him. We've sent him the Zoom invite, so we're going to just jump into some of this stuff before he joins us, and then he'll hopefully jump in midstream. So. Why don't I start off by reading the tweet here? And it's he says, cheating scandal in poker going on that would make the Mike Postel scandal look like church service. Really hard to wrap my head around. I'm very disappointed in many people, some you would call heroes. One person pro showed integrity, others failed miserably. So Bill clearly was quite upset, right? It was a personal thing to him. Again, this was a small group of 20 to 30 players who had gathered together and, friends and played. It's 500 to 1,000. Like they're playing nosebleed, Nolan and Hold'em. And they made an effort to, keep out some of the sharks. And it was going to be this friends group. And it didn't work out that way. One of the people who played in the game either sold, and all the details haven't come out yet, that we're trying to sort of piece things together, but they either sold the account that they were playing on to a high stakes pro, or ghosted or split some sort of profit sharing deal. And the high stakes pro Bill made a deal that he wouldn't out this pro, even, with how upset he was, because I guess he went to the pro and said, look, give me all the information you have and I won't, tweet your name and drag you or, expose you for what you did. And so a deal was made. Bill claims that not a lot of information came after the deal was made, but enough for him to say that, yeah, I'm not going to out you. You held up your end and I'll hold up mine. He was still quite upset and thought that, the name would come out eventually. And there was, on Saturday, phones were blowing up, or, everybody's throwing darts trying to figure out who this was. And it turned out because Dan Bilzerian was in the game as well, and he outed Jungleman, Dan Cates, as being the person who was involved, or one of the people that was involved, who bought the account of an unknown. I don't think anybody really knew who the high stakes person that Jungleman either shared or bought the account from. So, poker Twitter exploded. Everybody, had their opinion, and there was certainly many of those. I wanted to get your guys' opinions in the sort of when you first heard about it, not so much after the details come out, because we'll get to that. But Terrence, why don't you start quickly and talk about what you thought when you first saw this tweet?
Well, when you first saw the tweet that says that there's a cheating scandal that makes Postle look like a church service, I was on a Zoom call with some old friends of mine, some poker friends, and just kind of scrolling the timeline, and I was like, whoa, this is going to be massive. This is going to be the news story of the year. Like, involves Bill Perkins. It's high stakes. Postle was super using. It's hard to even think of, a crime or a way of cheating that's even bigger than super using. I mean, as far as we're concerned, that's the top of the list. It's the filthiest, dirtiest thing that you can do. I mean, other than putting a gun to somebody's head and literally stealing money that way. So when you see that first tweet, you're just like, oh my God, this is going to shake everything. And then as we got a little bit more information, and I know you're going to go into it when Bill starts saying, well, I'm not actually going to talk about who it is right now. Like, I made an agreement not to talk about who it was, and I hope they come forward, instead of me having to do it, because it's probably going to come out anyway, so I hope they come forward themselves. I was like, what's going on here? This is a little bit questionable. And then, Bill had the really bizarre tweet that it was like, well, the one person that's behaved with integrity in this is Jason Kuhn. So Jason Kuhn is definitely not guilty. However, every other potential high-stakes player in the world might be guilty, but not Jason Kuhn. And that just led to like this rampant speculation. I mean, you see so many names get dragged through mud. Like Daniel, I saw people saying, oh, I wonder if it's Daniel. I wonder if it's Justin Bonomo.
Hoping it's me.
There's people hoping it's you. There were people hoping it was you. There was people hoping it was Justin Bonomo. There are people hoping whoever in the high stakes poker world they like the least personally, they were hoping it was that guy just so they could have more reason to hate them. So Bill really kind of, and I think he'd admit that himself, like, did this in kind of a pretty questionable way. And then we started to learn more about the details, what happened. But up until the point where we found out who it was and what the crime, as it were, was, that's kind of my timeline of reactions up to that point. Daniel?
On the tail end of what you said, it feels like, often, somebody throws you under the bus. Bill threw himself under the bus. Bill just literally let the bus run over him. And Bill is a pretty self-aware guy when it comes to this, and you can see in a lot of his replies that, yeah, I didn't handle this very well. As you mentioned, everybody I knew was texting me. This tweet was big. Like, people in the industry, a lot of people. My first thought was, I thought it might be something else or something different. And then I got very quickly, I learned exactly what the story is, and I have the details. It's not my place to share them because, that's up to Bill and whatever. But, we're sort of elephant in the room thing, but like Dan Bilzerian did put out a tweet, and he tweeted a guy who was cheating him in the game, and he tweeted, in the tweet is the guy's phone number, which I guess.
Yeah.
But in addition to that, he named who the player was that was supposedly ghosting, and that's Jungleman, Daniel Cates, who there was a case with Jungleman years ago doing this, something like this, like ghosting. Now, we don't know the details are not public yet in terms of whether this actually went through and happened. Like, did it actually happen, or was it something that was discussed and, Kuhn said, no, you guys shouldn't do that, or something to that effect. So maybe Bill will shed more light on the full details, but certainly, the poker world as a whole, because they're addicted to this drama shit. They just love it. Like, they want there to be a big scandal because people are bored and they just like to see misery and pain. I'm glad it wasn't that big a deal, and it's wrong, right? Obviously, it is not okay to do that. But like on the scale that Terrence laid out of super user to, me playing Terrence's account, which, I don't know if that'd be a good thing. Well, no, anyway. But yeah, like it's on the scale of things, like that's hardly something that I would put at the high end. It's wrong. But here's the thing too, and we should get into this discussion later. This is what happens with these private apps and these private games. I'm in a couple private games. I'm on the committee of one of them where we decide who can and who can't play. And some of the parameters are, do we think this person would cheat? Would they use software to assist? Are we certain they're going to play, be the one player on the account? And also, if they're not posting, can they pay and will they pay? So, when you agree to play in one of these games, and they're in a big one, like this is high stakes, the game that they're playing in, you sort of take a little bit of personal responsibility and saying like, listen, I'm trusting these people, maybe I shouldn't for this kind of money or not. So ultimately, it's an interesting discussion to have.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about your game because you play in a small group of friends as well, and
couple private games, couple private games. Right?
Yeah, and so there's a lot of people on Twitter saying, "You're crazy if you don't think this is happening in every one of these." The high stakes poker world is rife with this. So, what do you think? Like, pick one of your games, and what do you think the percentage chance is that this has happened in the games you play?
Yeah, I don't think it's happened. The only possibility, because there was one discussion, because I'm on the committee and we brought this up on a Sunday, because we can usually tell, we thought that there may have been one specific player who was being ghosted. So somebody else was playing the account. Like, because the way in which the person, this was a player that normally didn't play shorthanded, didn't like shorthanded, and all of a sudden now is playing heads up, right? But he was getting killed. So he lost a chunk of money, right? Like, he just got buried, but he was playing a different style or whatever. So we looked at that and thought possibly somebody else was playing the account. In retrospect, what we did was we called him during mid-game and put him on FaceTime, right? Which is actually something that's done sporadically in one of the games I play. Like, there'll be a game going and they call you right there and you got to have your screen up and, show that it's you playing to verify. So there's some precautions that are taken, but in terms of, something like this with ghosting, if somebody's in the room, by the time they call, too late. So ultimately, trust has to be a thing. This isn't something where you should lightly invite anyone, right? Like, you should be very conscious. And that we've turned away people that I was like, no, we should let them play. A couple people in the committee are like, nah, I don't know. I'm not 100%. Like, all right, well, then you can't play.
So the interesting thing for me when it first came out was that people were calling it ghosting. And I kind of think that there's a difference between, and I don't know why it's different, but when you're playing in a huge field like on Party Poker, Sunday Million, or the GG Poker Masters or whatever, and somebody does it or sells their account, the transgression seems, I don't know, less bad. It's obviously bad and it shouldn't do it. But if you're, doing it in a 30-person field with people, quote unquote, friends that trust you to be the one playing, it seems worse to me. And so to call both of them ghosting seems not accurate. And I don't know what the term would be. Terrence, what do you think of that?
I'm not sure. I think it's kind of just as bad either way. If you sell an account late in a tournament, or if you enter in a cash game and let everybody else in the game think that you're somebody that you're not, I think they're both bad. I mean, I think the limit of ghosting that I'm probably okay with is if your buddy's over at your house and he legitimately just happens to be over at your house and you're making a deep run and you respect his game a lot and you're just like, I don't know what to do here. Like, what do you think? And they say something like, well, I think you're probably beat here or something. So you hit the fold button. That's on the margins, I think, of ethics. And if somebody did something like that, I wouldn't castigate them as the most evil person that ever lived. I think when you're playing under false pretenses, anytime you're pretending to be somebody that you're not, I think you're doing something wrong. And there's a lot of people. Yeah, go ahead.
So you guys remember on Full Contact Poker back in the day, I used to play heads up, 500, 1,000 limit hold'em against a player named Jungleman, right? I know. Yep. Well, that was 4 people. I was playing 4 people that were switching in and out. I know them now. I'm fine with them. I'm not upset or whatever. I kind of knew as we were going, but I didn't know when they were switching and whatever. So to think that this is something that's really, I mean, it's wrong with even back then, but it's on the level of cheating as we've discussed. It's
it was definitely different then. I think in the early 2010s, late 2000s, early 2010s, it was a thing that was probably done a little bit more often, and people didn't quite think as badly as it. And I know people have done that to me too. Like significant names in the poker community have definitely multi-accounted when I've played heads up against them as well. And I never did it, but it's if it happened in 2008, I'm not going to be that upset about it. But here in 2020, I think people know better.
Here's the thing though. To me, that's different. Dream Clown is different because Daniel wasn't friends with them. You're not friends with, some of the people that you took on playing Nosebleed heads up limit hold'em. For instance, Terrence, let's say you're playing and one of your closest friends in poker, let's say Bill Chen, you're playing for fun. You're playing Bill Chen heads up. You guys think you're fine to play high stakes against each other. And not that Bill needs it, but Bill sold it to the, had somebody play and you found out about it. Don't you think that's worse than Bill playing an account?
Absolutely. I mean,
so that's what I'm saying.
So of course, when you're betrayed by someone you think of as a friend, that's going to be a dagger to the heart, like no question. And you understand why Bill reacted in the way that he did, making this to be literally bigger than Postal and like making Postal look like church service. Like you understand, because it hurts so much when somebody that you consider a friend betrays you and takes advantage of you for financial gain. It's so much rougher. But I mean, from so yes, is it more unethical to screw over a friend? Of course it is, than to screw over a stranger or a random person on the internet. Yeah, but I mean, at the end of the day, the crime itself is still the same. It's still playing under an account that's not yours and pretending to be somebody you're not. I mean, but of course it hurts way more if it's a friend.
What I'll say is none of these are crimes, right? He's not going to get. And I know what you mean.
Crime in the poker
quotes,
sense, yeah.
But given that nothing is ever going to come of these things, when we look at it as poker players, we look at it in how bad it is and how much we're going to trust that person or care what happens to that person in the future. So that's what I'm trying to establish, I guess, on where this falls into.
Yeah, I think you had like a top 10. I think I saw that you tweeted like a top 10 like bad things that you can do with poker. And maybe you can remember your list, but I can't. But I remember reading your list and being like, yeah, that's pretty close to about right.
Like Daniel, let's say you're playing against Doyle and you're good friends with Doyle and you're in your game, and Doyle sold his account and didn't tell you, and maybe Doyle's not great at one game and somebody played you nosebleed heads up. Don't you think that's worse?
Well, no, absolutely, right? Because again, there's an element of trust. When you play online in an open forum, you're playing against random people. You don't know anything about these people. But like when you do have these private apps and these private clubs, it's kind of assumed that you're only invited because you are considered trustworthy. And when you breach that trust, it's like, yeah, it's probably like the worst thing you could do. It's like, I guess it feels worse of a crime because when you're doing it to somebody faceless, whatevs, right?
Yeah.
Jungleman says, Adam, let me play your account. I'll clean up in this game where you're playing online or whatever. If you're playing a bunch of random people, that's less egregious than saying like, Adam, let me play your account so we can take off Terrence. Right?
Yeah.
Well, that's kind of what this is closer to. And again, when we're talking, I think the only thing that makes that held true to what Bill's original tweet is in terms of like this being just going to make, Postal seems like church service is just simply the amount of money we're talking about. That's it. But in terms of the offense, not
the same. So to continue on here, Bill did back away from the Postal thing pretty quickly. I think everybody sort of called him on Twitter saying, hang on a second, yes. And Bill it was a personal thing, just like we were just talking about, because I think he considered Jungleman a friend, and this happened to him by Jungleman, apparently. So he took to Twitter and then said the thing that it's worse than possible. And then people just took issue with that and said, look, Bill, you get it that you're feel personally hurt, but Postal did this, and this. It was a well-orchestrated, very long and intensive cheating that happened, whether it was for as much money or not. And clearly it wasn't, doesn't change the fact that this was quite egregious. And I think he relented pretty quickly and said, yeah, okay, I got that wrong for sure. It's not as bad as Postal. And then as somebody said, it was Jason Kuhn that was the one who showed integrity. And that's awesome because I've always liked Jason. I'm glad that he was the one that did that. And Andrew Tang actually quoted something or tweeted something pretty funny. It was all going well until we asked Jay Kuhn to cheat, which
the best tweet of the week,
which was I think my favorite tweet of the whole thing. It was great. So obviously it seems like, and we don't know, but it seems like they went to Jason and tried to recruit him to the shenanigans, and he either turned him in or said no or did something. So
so let's talk about the jungle response, I guess. I think would be the thing to cover before Bill comes on. I don't know if you guys saw this, but Jungle on his Twitter, he wrote up a fairly lengthy response. I won't read it all, but basically he said he wasn't responding earlier due to some legal advice and financial matters. He says he played very few sessions. He says he never played against Bill Zarian, which is interesting because Bill Zarian was the guy who outed him. He says he played very few hands and very few sessions against Bill. He said that he understood the game. I understood the game was, quote, rampant with professionals who were ghosting. I thought since many on the site were using pros to play for them, which was clear from the uniquely high level of play, at the time I felt acceptable for me to be playing. Unfortunately, Bill got caught in the crossfire, and I'm sorry for that. He goes on to say that he feels that he was singled out for something that other people are guilty of, but because he's a big name and he wants to consider himself a role model, he's going to hold himself to a higher standard, and he apologizes. So I mean, I don't know what your guys' reaction to that is. To me, it was like a fairly mealy-mouthed non-apology, the saying that like, I'm singled out and everybody does this, and even if it's true that it's common, like the idea that like sort of like, oh, Bill got caught in the crossfire and I didn't mean to do that. It's like, well, I mean, if you go into the thing with the assumption that everybody is doing it, and it's not the case that everyone is doing it, then somebody is going to be caught in the crossfire, right? Like if all it takes is one person not cheating, and then that person is the victim. So it's kind of, you have a choice, I think, as a poker player. You can do the right thing and, play under your own name and realize that maybe you won't get in the super high stakes games with a bunch of, with Bill and a bunch of his like rich oil buddies. Or you can, and just be like, okay, well, I'm still one of the best players in the world. I can still make money in almost every single game I play. Or you can take that other road, which is, well, everybody's doing it. And it's so easy to just go to the, well, everybody's doing it, and start stealing money from people. And that's essentially what you're doing. So I didn't think very much of the apology from Jungle. There are a lot of people this week kind of say like, how are we even surprised that Jungle did this? Like, he's done it in the past, as Adam mentioned before. Like, he's not exactly one of those guys where when the name came out, you were like, oh my God, like, I can't believe it was him. Not to say he's the worst guy in the world, but I don't think anybody thought of him as a pair. Like if Jason Kuhn were the guilty one, we would legitimately all be shocked. But it wasn't. I mean, what's your guys' reaction?
Yeah, no. So I was going to say, I do think that, him bringing that up does muddy the waters just a little bit, right? If you're under the assumption that everyone on these accounts, there's plenty of pros playing. If you knew for a fact that this was happening and just sort of, and like the thing not that I'm going to defend Jungleman at all here, but like he does have Asperger's, okay? So when it comes to social settings and things like that, he thinks about things very, very differently. Doesn't make him evil or wrong, but his justification or rationalization is, well, is in his mind is like, if everyone's doing this and that's the perception, and of others that are, then it's just accepted, and so be it, right? Like other people know he's doing it, or the case, whatever the case may be. I agree with you, Terrence, 100% that like that's still not a good justification, because like if one person isn't cheating and like you're playing against all these random people, if it's sort of everyone kind of knows that other people play the accounts and they're fine with it, there's no issue, right? Like cool, like might as well do that if everyone else is, to try to gain an edge or whatever. It's like, this is my account, I can let whoever I want play on it. That should be within the rules somewhere where everyone says that's okay. And I doubt that it was. Clearly it wasn't, because Bill Perkins wasn't aware of it. So for Jungle, if he really genuinely thought that the game was predominantly pro-heavy, it does soften it, doesn't okay it, doesn't justify it, but it softens it a little bit in terms of the egregious. Like for example, and I think this is one of the questions or whatever. If you knew, say for example, in the tournament that just happened, the Poker Masters or whatever, and there's real name players. If you knew that like 5 or 6 of the players were in the United States while they were playing in this, and like everyone else is, and everyone in that community knows it, is it egregious? Like, is it hurting anyone who's causing? It's different in this situation because there's no cheating happening. But it's one of those things where if that was an accepted behavior and it was like well known to the people that are playing, it's fine. Clearly, that's not the case here because Bill Perkins had no idea.
Yeah, and I think there was cameras too. So to your point about the games earlier, when you have cameras and you're deceiving a camera, if that's what happened, and you're actively trying to get around that, I think we got a problem. And then just like you guys said, pointing out that other people are doing it isn't a good reason. And it kind of, to me, shows that, because Jungleman's done this before, the Jura scandal in the past. It kind of seems like he really didn't learn from being caught then. And
somewhere he's missing why this is so bad. like, because he's not a bad person. Like, I don't think he's a scumbag. I mean, this is a scummy thing to do. But like in his mind, and as I said, he does have, you know, specific issues, right? He's a savant at poker or whatever. But when it comes to stuff like this, like, I don't think he sees it as being wrong. And somehow we need to educate him on this so that he doesn't do it anymore.
Yeah, but don't you think that his past experiences would tell him, even if he doesn't think it's wrong, that everybody else does? So,
and he gets justification that he's like, well, other people are doing it too. So it's okay then. So it's okay again.
Yeah.
Right?
So he's trying to justify it and find reasons to do it, right? Because he thinks it's okay. And, you know, it's just disappointing because I think, again, he could just come out and say, you know what, this was wrong. I shouldn't have done that. I didn't, it didn't dawn on me, or I didn't realize how serious this was. I shouldn't have done this and I won't do it again. I apologize. And
I mean, like, I agree with Terrence too, though. Like, there was really no actual apology in there saying, like, it's unfortunate that I'm caught in the crosshairs. Like, no, I mean, like, they basically got cheated, dude. Like, people that play in this private game with lots of money, they don't want to play against pros, man. It's that simple. They want to play against people that they're comfortable playing against. And when you sit in there and you mop them up, you know, they feel cheated, rightfully so.
So when it did come out, Daniel, and, you know, everybody was kind of throwing darts and trying to figure out, I think that was the mistake that Bill probably didn't understand was going to happen, right? When he comes out and says, you know, one of the top 7 poker pros in the world. So then everybody goes.
Everybody loves that one.
And then he goes to sleep. Like, then Perky goes to bed, right?
Top 7.
And I'm looking people all over the industry, whatever, coming at me. Like, do you know? It took me about 10 minutes to find out, but like I did. And you know, but everyone like that I haven't heard from in ages. Like, freaking, I forgot to text her back too. Like Lena Olofsson from Sweden, who I haven't seen. She's like, what, is this true? Never, I forgot to reply to her. So, Lena, if you're watching, I'll respond to your text later.
I think Fedor Holtz tweeted a screenshot of the GPI that showed him the number 8 money winner of all time. And it was like everybody for about a 12-hour period really wanted to be considered the 8th best poker player in the world by Bill Perkins.
It was remarkable for me, though, because like obviously my name gets mentioned no matter what. And somebody was sending me some tweets, and they're like, well, I noticed Daniel's been very quiet on Twitter today, which I was laughing at. Just like, you know, like everyone's hoping it's me. They just like, it would be so fun to tear me down and call me a cheat and on top of everything else.
Well, that's why it's so bad by Bill, because it literally casts aspersions on every single human being who plays high-stakes poker other than Jason Kuhn, who is like, and some people were even saying like, oh, well, now Jason's being complicit in not naming who it was too. Like, we had that whole 12 to 18 hour or whatever it was period where the whole world was speculating on who it was, and we got into there was an interesting ethics debate about Bill doing the outing. Like, if you know we found out quickly enough because Bill Zarian made his tweet, but you know, Bill was arguing, well, it's not my place, I'm not the guy, like, people know who it is and it's going to come out eventually. But a lot of people were making the argument that he has an obligation to protect people. And you know, like, it's an interesting debate to sort of have. Is, you know, we have this with people who stiff people, right? That's an easier way to do it. So somebody stiffs you money, do you have an obligation to kind of like protect other people from being stiffed? There's even a worse situation right now. There's another gossip thing brewing with a rape allegations going on. I don't know if you guys know if you guys have read anything about this, but there's a very serious rape allegation, a sexual assault allegation against a former main event champion that's going on, and people
that's been going for years, and I think, you know, there's multiple.
It's gotten a bit more flame on the fire right now, and it's saying, well, and all of these people are kind of coming out and saying, yeah, I heard about this from such and such, but they asked me not to say anything, or, you know, I heard this from this woman that he did this, and
the same one from way back then.
Way back when.
It's from a while back, and yeah, like, so. You know, and you can make the argument that if nobody outs this person, that puts other people at risk, and it puts people at risk for getting scammed in poker games. You know, obviously sexual assault is much, much worse than anything that can happen to you at a poker table. So it gets into this ethical debate about what obligation people have to sort of out people when people have done bad things.
Well, let's look at this case specifically, right? So Bill has confronted the person. Bill has explained and tweeted about how upset he is. This person is friends with Bill and many other people and is concerned about his reputation. So there was a lot of people saying, well, Bill, if you don't out him, well, the rest of us are going to play against him. That's not fair to us. that's your obligation. And I think it's probably safe for Bill to, surmise that this person isn't going to do this in the next 24 hours or 48 hours or 1 week or whenever his name eventually gets outed. So, but in general, I understand the point. I'm just not sure that in this case it's relevant.
Terrence, like to sort of piggyback on what you were saying, I think it's really, really important because I got a lot of people, and I was hearing speculation about specific names, and people were asking me, like, I mean, who are the names? And I said to him, I was like, it's irresponsible for me to spread this without knowing for sure if it's true or not. Because you're talking about people's reputation and livelihood. So whether it's the case that Terrence mentioned from way back when, or this case, it's really, I think the most important thing is you better be correct. You better be right, and you better be 100% sure if you're going to slam somebody, whether it's, a debtor, whether it's something more severe and serious, as Terrence was talking about before, or in this case, the speculation of who it was. Because I remember in the first 5-6 minutes, I got a bunch of people texting me different names or whatever, and I was like, no, it's not that, or even different, scenarios of what was happening. But I was careful not to just tell everybody it's this person, it's that person, because again, I don't, you just don't want to be that person. It's so irresponsible. And I think in the news today, in the world today, so often people run with a story so, quickly without all the facts. And then before you know it, you're like, dude, you just totally threw this person on the bus and they're totally innocent. You got to be very careful, I think.
I think one of the funniest thing, and I don't know if you guys remember the old MS Paint thread at 2+2.
Oh, the best. There's a classic thread.
Yeah,
absolutely.
But remember Cyril the Frenchman with the baguette and everything? So somebody tweeted, is it this guy? And they did the top 7 GPI players, and they put Cyril next to his picture and tweeted out. And I think Bill tweeted, wow, that looks exactly like the guy, but I'm not going to say who it is, which was funny if you remember the old Cyril MS Paint. But David Peters was actually the number 7 guy. And when Bill said top 7, everybody's like, is it David Peters? And
it's such an odd number to say top 7.
And then because Cyril kind of looks like a little bit like David Peters, and I think Peters is like, he tweeted out, it was so funny. He tweeted out, while looking at this picture is like looking in the mirror, I have nothing to do with this. which was really good.
Bill's on the line.
Oh, hello.
Hello. I'm Bill Perkins.
Hi, Bill.
Hello.
Okay, we have lots of questions for you. You look good, though.
You look ill. You okay? You sick?
Quarantine's been really good to me.
I like what you've done with your hair.
On a phone call, but he'll be right here.
No problem.
Time to get him set up. I'll be right back.
Okay, great.
All right, joining us is the one and only Bill Perkins at BP22. Bill, welcome to the DAT Poker Podcast, sir.
Hi.
Hey, so we're good. We had to bring you on this week to find out who your pick is for the NHL Stanley Cup that's going to be recurring. That's the big story of the week.
I'm just going with whoever Daniel picks. That's just a bottom line. That's it.
Again, yeah, thanks so much. We've had some time, Bill, to kind of kick it around a little bit, and I know you don't want to get too specific about people or situations, and well, I don't want to tread on what you're comfortable with and what you're not. So if there's something that comes up and you're not comfortable, hey, just throw it out that you don't really want to go there. That's awesome, no problem. So going back to your original tweet, when you talked about obviously it was probably pretty raw in the moment. This was a friend. It seems like from what's been reported that you trusted and maybe took advantage of you at this point. You tweeted cheating scandal in poker going on would make the Mike Postel scandal look like a church service. And I know you backed off that and people kind of went after you and said, wait a second. But yeah. I think you meant more in a monetary sense.
Yeah, I think it was more in monetary sense. And I was still like, there were all sorts of there were things that were confirmed and there were accusations going on that were like, wow, there's more to this. You know what I mean? I had this idea of this like recruiting operation and multiple pros, and this is the tip of the iceberg type of thing going on. And so, I think there was a lot of just shock. It's like kind of like at the end of the Scooby-Doo show when you pull the hat off and you're like, oh my God. You know what I mean? Like I had that shock going on, and I was just like, oh, wow. It kind of hurt. I was actually hurt. And then, I had these trying to process the information, and I was also pissed at the time. So I think definitely my tweet was excessive in terms of like trying to relative scale, and I'll concede that point.
But wait, it sounds like from what you're saying then, like when you sent out the tweet, you actually thought it was much worse than you ended up finding out it was, or?
Yeah, I do, like, there's definitely still allegations of other people and other pros and recruiting, and there's a whole bunch of, well, I don't want to say, or you know what I mean, like that type of thing going on, right? Like other pros got asked to play, and I'm like, well, who asked you? You know what I mean? Or who did this, or what other pro was playing? Because they're saying other pros, and they're like, oh, we don't want to say, everybody's clamming up, right? And so at the time, my head was swirling of like, wow, there's this ring going on, which may or may not be going on. I don't know that, and all this information, it just seemed like it was going to explode. And I was still, I said, hard to wrap my head around, still, ongoing, like trying to get to the bottom of this, right? And so I still haven't gotten to the bottom of this, and I've kind of like given up on that aspect of it. But that's kind of that raw, I got an itchy tweet finger. You know what I mean? Like I'll be the first to admit, like, it's like I use my Twitter for my news. I have all these like organizations I follow, whatever, and then it's like, oh, there it is, and I'm feeling this way. Let me tweet, and it's like, you idiot, why'd you do that? So,
Bill, can you take us back to the beginning? If you're not comfortable talking about stuff, how was this game presented to you? How was it proposed to you? Talk about how you started playing in the game, maybe.
So it's a private game of businessmen, right? And the app it's password protected, okay? So you can't just show up and sit down and play, right, with chips. You have to be invited to the club. Then it's also password protected. It's no pros, only businessmen or recreational players, right? And there's also, the app gives permission to your camera so that it sees that it's you playing. Right. And so it's like, oh yeah, it's authentically you, right? And
the other players can see an image of you while you're playing?
Yes. It
Okay.
frequently takes pictures, but the club can actually have a much even wider view of your thing if they suspect something's going on, right? And so there's this security features that are built in to, thwart that or not encourage that, et cetera, to make people authentic. When you're playing with people that are, let's say, just set, right? There should be no reason for them to steal in life, given where they're at. And, it'd be completely scummy, but the app has that, right? For every club, no matter what club, even if it's a 2-5 game, et cetera, it has that aspect of it. So that was clearly the expectation and the rules set forth by the club and the game. And so, that I got asked to say, hey, this is a juicy game. It's big stakes and action, come play in this club. It's this person, this person, you kind of know this person and that person and whatever. That type.
So would you have played in this game, do you think, if it didn't have the protection from quote unquote pros or whatever, like you wanted to, play in a casual game, right?
I mean, I would play with pros, but not at the stakes we were playing, right? Like I'll sit down, I don't want to play a new format, 500, 1,000, 1,000 ante game with super wizards, right? Like I'm just not, it's like, what I mean? I don't want to sit next to a bunch of super wizards and play short 4-handed, 5-handed, where you got this huge stack, right? Like I'm just not that good yet, right? And so, but I'm known to chop it up on other sites at 200, 400. I'm not completely afraid, but it's an expectation thing, right? Expectations versus reality, right? It's like you don't want to be deceived, you don't want to be frauded, and you don't want to be targeted, right? Like if I sit down and we're you want to fight or we're just battle it up and I'm battling versus Daniel, I know what I'm up against. I did it. If I lose, I'm fine. I'm totally okay, right?
Bill, I got a question because the way you described it, the software sounds pretty solid, right? Where you can see who the person is, right? So clearly the discussion is that, there was somebody else. How did they do that? Like, couldn't you just see who it was? Like, what was the process for how they were doing that?
So it's basically they have switches that they can switch on and off. So the Android or Windows machine can use it, or iPad only, Apple iOS only. In this particular room, it allowed Android and Android and Microsoft products, right? So you can play it on your tablet. The issue with that is that you can then use TeamViewer to have somebody remotely control your computer. So your picture's up, blah, 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 et cetera. And occasionally, like, if I'm playing in my bed, this is what my picture looks like, right? And occasionally I'll pop up too. So that aspect goes on as well. So, but in this particular stance, it was TeamViewer.
Wow. So this was like a real effort. This wasn't just like I'm gonna play your account today because I owe you a favor. This is like they're setting up TeamViewer, and the businessman, the alleged businessman, is sitting in front of his machines with his face on the camera, while a professional poker player is remote going into his computer to click the commands for him. So if you wanted to chat with him or whatever, you would still think that you're talking to the businessman. So it goes pretty deep.
Yeah, that's my understanding. Of the stuff I've seen, it looks like it was done by TeamViewer, and what was going on, right? So they have, Cena. I'll say his name. I don't care. He was an idiot. He was teaching someone how to use TeamViewer, and he recorded it, and it's like out there, right? And so it's like, okay, we have hard evidence right now. You know what I mean? And so, and then, once that happens, like, dominoes start, there's a saying, like, 3 people can keep a secret if 2 of them are dead. It's like,
okay. So, talk about how it went, like you're playing in the games, and did it seem tough, or was it a long time before you stumbled on this? Maybe give us a little context there.
So I think I started playing about like, maybe 10 days before the truth came out. And there were rumblings like, hey, be careful of this thing, right? Be careful of these guys. This guy may not be that guy, this guy. And I was like, you take that with a grain of salt, right? Because in the poker world, we're like a bunch of schoolgirls, right? If somebody has a good home private game, people always dog it, right? Like, oh, that guy's a cheat, you're just constantly hearing gossip and rumors, right? And then so I was like, okay. And I noticed some, upper level play, right? Like I've been getting lessons, and like one of the things like amateurs won't do is they don't fold the 3 bets, they don't 4-bet enough, certain things like that. And you're seeing some plays, I'm like, whoa, that is not the guy I know. You know what I mean? That is not a businessman, or like what's going on. And it's specifically with Cena, the story that was told to me is like he couldn't even tell you what the hand rankings were,
Wow.
Right? Like he's like the worst. And then like now, there's 3-bet, 4-bet, 5-bet fold. I'm like, pros only fold. You know what I mean? Like pros fold the 5-bet jams, not amateurs, right? They're just like, oh, well, I'm in, They're not, there were some advanced plays and stuff going on. So, I was like, okay, this could be real, or the guy could just got good or whatever. And, it just like after like a day or 2 before, everything broke, I was like, I got invited to play. I said, you know what? I'm not playing anymore. I just don't.
Bill, were you suspicious of just this one player that was doing that, or did you notice this trend like in a few spots?
I noticed the trend in a few spots, like, pros like to like do funky stuff for low stakes or whatever, like, oh, 7K, whatever. Yeah, I had, 9-5 off or whatever. But then when the stakes are, so then you have this range construction, right? Like amateurs are not doing range construction, but intuitively you have this range construction in your head of like, oh, this guy's wild. He can have anything, you know what I mean? But when the real money gets in the pot, right? It's like, they got it, right? Like they got you, right? And so they stack you in situations. And I saw some things like that, which made me suspicious of other players. And once you're in the streets and you were like, these streets don't feel like businessman streets, right? Like,
right? Like you've played high stakes poker against geniuses and and stuff. So like when you're sitting there in that $1 million buy-in, like what it feels like, because you actually got segregated businessman to pro. So like the feel is just very different, right? And you could sense that.
Right. And so then the rumblings and the schoolgirl chatter of, this is going on. It's like, nah, this is true. Right. And then like, I think the day of, or actually it was like that night, I found that night, woke up, sent a message and said, I'm very disappointed in you. And was just kind of, and that's when the tweet went out, right? Like, I'm like, who else is involved? Blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? That's when, I went Donald J. Trump on Twitter and,
well, I think it's totally understandable the way that you went off, even if you were, you exaggerated a little too far with the postal thing because you were hurt by somebody that you considered a friend. And that's all, we talked about this before we had you on, that's always going to cut a little bit deeper than when some random person, cheats you out of money or tries to steal you some money. That's always going to cut a little deeper. But you went, for a period, I don't know the exact timeline, but there's a long period of time where the individual in question was not known until the Dan Bilzerian tweet, naming it as Jungleman. But you said, you were sticking to your guns saying, I'm not going to name this person. Like, I'm very disappointed in this person. And, I hope this person, I made a deal that this person is going to give me some more information, and I'm not going to say who he is because he gave me that information. I'm a man of my word. You took a lot of flack for that because it was seen that you were protecting, a cheater at that point. And people said, well, hey, if there's a cheater out there, I think the rest of the high stakes community deserves to know that that's a person of integrity. And, I'll let you talk, but your thoughts on it, at least publicly, were like, well, it'll probably come out anyway. I'm going to give this guy a chance to come out on his own, but that didn't happen.
Yeah, I think the first thing is like, I believed and I still believe like this is way bigger than just the person who got caught, right? Like that we have that confessed, etc. And so, I was basically like, I'm going to find out everybody, like who your compatriots, etc. Right. And so, and there were also other people who lost significant sums who also trying to find this out, right? And so, I'm trying to protect, like, just like, we're the Keystone Cops, but you know what I mean? Like, we're trying to protect the integrity of this investigation and cut deals just to get the full extent of what's going on. And so,
like to get the kingpin drug dealer, the street dealer, which is like, the Jungleman, as Bilzerian pointed out, he's just like a street drug dealer. We want to find out who the kingpin is. The only way to do that is to get this guy on our side by cutting him a side deal.
Watch too many cop shows, Daniel.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think it's unreasonable to like, hey, share what kind of information, and I'm not gonna be the one to blast you publicly. You know what I mean? Like, I don't need to be Mr. Vindictive or Mr. Revengeful or Paul Revere. I need to, there's other people who are hurt, who lost money, significant sums of money. And like, we're going to sit with these people. We're going to know with the people. So we want to know also, like, who are the businessmen that are scumbags that we don't want to associate with, right? We want to expose, we want to find that piece of information out. And we want to know who the other people who are just like out of integrity that, that we're bumping and dealing with and buying pieces in tournaments and stuff like that. And then lo and behold, they're trying to like scam us, right? And so that was a much higher priority than like the crowd needs to know, right? At the time. And maybe I cut a bad, maybe I cut a bad deal, I think I did, because I think the additional information that followed that was like nothing. There was like no new information that came out.
It feels like your tweet kind of like, because you're talking about it feels like the tweet itself kind of hurts the investigation. Like if you could go back, would you like not even put it out there?
I got much criticism about the tweet and the investigation, and now everybody's clamming up and like, it's blowing up out of control, et cetera. So yeah, if I could go back, for sure, I would change that tweet.
What's your feeling, Bill, on obviously without naming names, but now that you're sort of getting into the investigation phase, or you have, and you probably have people coming to you saying this person's doing this or this person's doing that. What's your feeling on, maybe not just in this specific app or this friends group that you were playing with, but maybe, have you had some other stuff come at you, or how deep do you think it goes?
I think, even in like Jungleman's like thing, it's like, oh, it was rampant and other people were doing that, right? Like, well, he never told me about anybody else or whatever. So and that's got to be a feeling based on the way that people were playing or something, or he lied to me during the deal, right? So, but it just seems like, you know, and I'm getting all kinds of feedback on the spectrum, right? Like people have like a spectrum of like, okay, was it unethical, immoral, against the rules, illegal, right? In that kind of like spectrum type of thing. And so, you know, if somebody's sitting behind you, like one of the things that people, you know, talk about, like on poker, there's no such thing as a 1 player per hand rule on online poker, right? If you go to Poker Stars and you look at, they will tell you, no, there's not, we don't have that rule. Somebody can whisper in your ear the whole time. They can't touch the keyboards. They shouldn't be hitting action, but they can, you can consult a crew of 50 if you want to before you do anything. But you know, each site has its own rules, et cetera. And generally they don't make rules you can't enforce, right? You just don't want to be doing that. And so this site was like, hey, they created rules that they felt they can enforce by password, invite only, camera system, et cetera. And to a certain extent, turning off only on iOS, right? Where it's harder to team viewer and do stuff like that. And by curating the players such that you wouldn't expect this to happen, right? Like, you know, why does this guy gotta beat me out? You know what I mean? Like it's not only, you know, 500, 1,000. There's also, you know, lower stakes like 200, 400, 300, 600. Like, why does Bill Perkins need to cheat me? You know what I mean? Or why does, you know, the equivalent of Bill, people way richer than me, like, why does he got to cheat? You know, you just wouldn't expect that. Like, there's a reasonable expectation that they're not going to violate these rules.
How did this businessman guy get in the game in the first place? Like, were you friendly with him? Do you know him for a long time?
I don't know him. I know the people that have the club. You know what I mean? Like, these apps all set it up so you can have a club, right? You can go and poker.
How do people get verified to play? Like, say, for example, you know, like, is there a committee? Because I know I play in some of the private games too that are, you know, club format. There's like a committee where we judge a player based on whether we think he'd cheat and all that kind of stuff. Like, how does someone, like, I want to play, Bill, can I play? Like, how would I?
I mean, it's really trust of the people who were running the club, right? It's like, oh, you know, I know you, I've known you for a long time, I know you a little bit, and you know, whatever, and you guys raise this thing, and you're telling me, you know, I'm believing what they're telling me, and ostensibly they're believing what they're telling me, I think, you know. But you know, when stuff like this happens, it's just like the accusations just they're flying, right? Like they're flying. It's like hard to separate what's rumor and bullshit and what's you know actually true.
Does it kind of like shake your worldview of, you know, in a sense, like who you can trust as a friend? Because you know you mentioned that this was a friend who did this to you, and you know, wealth can be like an isolating thing. You're known in the community. You're a wealthy guy who likes to have fun, and you know you like to splash around in these games. You're not a professional poker player, but you like to have fun. You know, you're on the boat and everything. I could see an event like this, you know, really changing the way that you view who to trust, and that's to me like one of the roughest things, and one of the things that I feel most badly about for you is that your trust been conveyed. Like, how can you kind of go forward from this? Like, will you play online poker against people? Like, you know, just talk through your sort of emotions in that way, because I know it's got to have affected you.
Yeah, I think like I'll go tactics and then emotions. I'll go tactics first. Like, you know, I'll play on other sites like GG, and I know I'm battling wizards, right? And I'm like, why am I gonna go in a game that's curated, supposed to be just us businessmen and whatever, and then get, you know, hoodwinked by playing like the best, one of the best, you know, arguably one of the best players in the world, right? When I can just go play wizards myself and the stakes I want to, et cetera. So it's like,
Knowingly. Yeah.
the purpose of these clubs is like kind of obviated, and I don't trust, you know what I mean? Like I haven't played, like there's ones that are actually allegedly integrity in these other clubs. I just lost a taste for it, you know? And you know, human beings are human beings. Like I'm not like the freaking Dalai Lama, Jesus Christ, whatever. I've been in and out of integrity in my life in different ways, mostly with women, but like, you know, and I've spent many years getting my integrity back, right? Like, you know, in certain ways. And, you know, one of the areas where you don't expect people to be out of integrity is in their profession when they're professionals, right? We have a higher standard for cops to behave in a certain way. We have a higher standard for a lawyer to behave in a certain way. Your doctor, like you don't expect your doctor to be out integrity, drugging patients and raping them. You'd be like, oh my God, you know what I mean? Like, and so I don't expect any professional, like we have a higher expected level of trust for professionals. So I think that shook me up a little bit because, this mistake was so below his stature. It was just kind of like, huh? Like, it didn't even make mathematical sense. The opportunity cost, because it was going to get out, right? Like, I ran the math on like, okay, if 90% of the people are not going to talk, what's the probability of this eventually getting out? It's just like, if you just ran this math, it's going to get out, right? So then I'm just like, okay, let's look at the money and the percentage deal he was getting. I'm like, wow, the opportunity cost versus what you were earning is just ridiculous. It's like the worst negative reverse free roll I've seen. It's like a light negative.
Money, I know that. I know you're a smart guy with money. So I'm wondering, because the way you described it was like, so you're playing in this fun game with a bunch of weak players, and then you're willing to go play high stakes against the Wizards, right? So do you really allocate money differently, where you're like, I'll gamble big in this game with all the fishies, and I want to be careful. I'll take some shots, have some entertainment dollars. Like, do you think of it differently?
Yeah, I definitely think of it differently, and I also think like I'm not calling off with ace queen off, and versus Wizards, right? Like, it's like the businessman. Okay, let's gamble. You probably got like who knows? You can be shoving ace 10 off here or something like that. Like, it's definitely different. It is definitely like the stakes and my entertainment dollars are different. Like, I don't have infinite money, you know what I mean? And at these stakes, it can really hurt if somebody can like crush you. And so, that hurt. But one of the things I learned about myself, and I think it's also true of us, is that, mistake made, okay. Apology, okay. I'm eventually going to forgive the person. That's what life's about, right? May not play with them again or whatever. There's consequences, but like, I'm not going to try and, beat them up to death forever. Right. And I don't think anybody should, but one of the things I noticed is that I focus too much energy on condemning and not rewarding good or non-bad behavior. Right. And so I was thinking that today. It's like, there are people who said no that I need to like reach out to and be like, you're the fucking man. You didn't do anything that was expected of you, but like, we don't reward that enough. You know what I mean? We don't reward like, hey, you're just doing your job. You're like doing your thing. You're like staying in integrity, right? It doesn't have to be extraordinary, but too much of my energy is focused on, you did wrong. You did this. You should have done that. And I was like, I need to, I started trying to reach out to the people who resisted this temptation and did the right thing and be like, hey, any way I can reward you or just say thanks or whatever, I want to start doing that more.
That's awesome. Bill, thanks so much. I know it's a difficult situation for you, a difficult week that you had to make some very tough decisions. Hopefully there's, there's some resolution, I guess, down the line for yourself as far as sort of the trust that was broken, and, you can move on from that and find that. So that would be good.
I wonder what would resolution look like to you at this point?
I mean, so there's, I think there's there's responsibility and accountability, and like the people who ran the club have a responsibility to make it right to the people who had significant sums lost that went to this cheating player, right? And so that's got to be solved. The funny people like, oh, you got money back or you did whatever. I was like, actually, I made money in the game, right? I net made money, right? But that's not how a ring game works, right? I'm going to beat this guy for whatever, and this guy stacks me, and then I'm up money, right? And so, so it's not for me. It was never about like I got cheated out of a bunch of money. There were other people who got cheated out of a bunch of money, right? And so, if you do a big blind comparison to, not to bring it up again, but the apostle thing, it's like equivalent. You know what I mean? Like I
saw you take offense to one thing, because people were going over like reasons why, you're keeping it quiet or whatever. And one of those was like your own financial interest. So you're not, you take offense to that.
Yeah, in my mind, like when I read it, I was just like, eat a motherfucking bag of dicks. Like, it's like the first thing, like I keep asking, what do you want? You want settled? Like, they were offering me settled, whatever. Like, I don't want any fucking money. Do not fucking even think about the money, because it's not about the money, right? My integrity is never for fucking sale. Like, I might make the wrong decision, right? I might do the wrong thing. You'd be like, Bill, that's not right. Like, whatever, but it's never like outside the bounds of like or I don't think they are, outside the bounds of my guideposts and how I think about things, right? Like, like, oh, this is wrong, but I'm just going to do it anyway, that type of thing, And so that was very, very, very insulting. And it was just like not even mathematically correct. Like, do you think I really, like, do you see the way I spend money? It's like, come on, like, this doesn't even add up. Like,
you wrote a book called fucking Dying with Zero.
Yeah, I read a book called Die with Zero. You think I'm like, oh yeah, I need to squeeze you for some money, so and then I'll be quiet. No, the whole quiet thing was like, there are people who just don't want to be involved. Like newspapers with scandal and then have their name associated with scandal. People don't read through the whole article. They're like, oh, you businessman associated with scandal, right? They don't need that headache in their lives and stuff like that. And then there's also like shit comes out, people's flying around, like they don't want to be associated with that crap. So there were people upset with me internally just from like, God damn it, Perkins, like we don't want to deal with this. Like, I don't got time for that shit. I'm just playing a game, and yeah, the guy cheated, but like now it's going to be people asking questions and blah blah blah, and that type of.
I wonder since this has happened, like what's happened to the game? Is the game continuing? Are you going to continue to play in it, or
that game is like that's done? That's done. I mean, not in that club, right? The game of poker is not going on, and other people have clubs. And it's just like it's done. But I'm like, I'd rather fly bullets on ZG, right? Like, why not play? If I'm going to play Wizards and people are like trying to edge seek, like let me just go up against the Wizards.
So you're fine with being like outmatched in cases when it's a straight game, right? You'll go up and play against, Fedor or Nick Petrangelo. You'll play them knowing that this is like a challenge for you personally, but you just it feels ugly to like, get duped like that.
We're like, hey, we're going to go box. And like, you're an amateur boxer, we're in box. Let's go box. But if you do some like, Mission Impossible shit and stick Mike Tyson under your body, like that ain't right. Like, I don't want to get knocked out. Like if I'm going to fight Mike Tyson, I'll fight Mike Tyson. I'm running around the ring. You know what I mean? Like, for like 3 minutes, right? Like he's not gonna catch me. I hope he's not. And so it's just a different like it's a deceit. Like a fraud is to like deceive somebody of what the expectations are, right? And so you don't want a fraud perpetrated upon you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, Bill, thanks so much again for joining us, and just on a personal, thank you for. You probably, the way you spend money gave me a little bit of a memory from a couple of years ago where you were nice
he put
enough.
all the weight back on.
Not all of it. Don't say that. I'm not all of it. You were nice enough, and I haven't talked to you actually since, and I want to thank you again for offering that free roll. That was life-changing for me, and I appreciate it a lot.
You're welcome. And I also want to say one thing, because I mean, when scandal comes out, like, the whole thing about like we as a species evolved to alert to danger. Right? We're like lion, woof, 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 right? And so that is natural amongst us to like point out and condemn bad behavior. But, let's also look out, like he did come out, did give it like a wishy-washy apology, but apologized, owned up to it, did confess. And, we have to like, we got to call it out, but we can't be beating up people all the time. So I just want to say.
Last question before we go, so was the apology satisfactory to you? Did you feel?
I mean, I've read some of it, whatever, when he apologizes, like when people get caught, and I've been in this spot, right? Like you're just like, oh, this is going to be painful, right? Like you just like, but it was just a tip and blah, blah, blah. Everybody's got a story, right? Like everybody's got like a solid fucking story. And the best apology is like, I fucked up. I had no real reason to do this whatsoever. I'm out of integrity. I am sorry. It'll never happen again. You can't argue with that, right? You can't pick that apart, right? That's the best apology. Not, oh, well, other people were doing it and I thought this, and like nobody wants to hear your fucking story about why you did the wrong thing.
Somebody should have ghosted his apology. I would have wrote that shit. I would have wrote that shit for him better.
I don't know what his friends were advising him on, like he was going to get screwed, because that's just going to get ripped up or whatever. And I don't want to beat up on him on that part, whatever. It's just hard. Like, it's just hard. Like, when you do something wrong, you're just grasping at straws, right? And I didn't know her name and my friends, and if you went to the home, you didn't answer the phone, like all the excuses in the world start coming out. And like, I've been there, buddy. So like, I am not without, you could throw tomatoes at me too. So it was not a great apology. It's not a standard apology. And, my coaching to Jungleman was like, hey, this is how you approach it. This is what you say. You own the fucking thing. There's no fucking excuses. You should actually be like, I should be held to a higher standard. And that's it.
Even with this, it sounds like you have compassion towards him. Even after this, like you're taking it from a perspective of instead of like piling on it, you actually want to help this kid.
Yeah, I mean, I think like if you look at like just like it was like if this was like a business plan and he laid it out and everybody was looking at the risk reward, it's like, are you fucking nuts? You know what I mean? Like you would have been like, you're gonna make this much percent game like expected value, and you're like playing against like very powerful rich people. You know, you could be pitching them business ideas and stuff like that, but you're trying to pick their pocket. Now they're never gonna touch you, and all their friends and the people they know and so on. It's like the opportunity cost was ludicrous. I mean, just as a sociopath, like, what are you doing? You know, I was just like, this is the most idiotic thing I've ever seen, right? I mean, for Cena, he's getting the lion's share, right? He's the backer and he's only paying, but for that piddly ass piss at percent, you know what I mean? You gave up all this opportunity cost and you know what I mean? You know these people, it's like, it's just stupid.
Can I ask you how you felt about being in Bill Zarian's phone as Bill Rich Perkins?
So I've been poor and I've been rich and I've been poor and I've been rich and you know, when trading goes well and I've been rich, Dan's like, oh, I'm putting you in as Bill Rich Perkins. You're rich. He calls me up. He's like, Rich Perkins. You know, he does that all the time, you know, because I can go flying around and hanging with him, you know, and I'm not poor now. It's like, well, we might as well keep it while I'm left. But I didn't like, you know, I posted a fuck my life when he posted the thing because I tried to convince Dan not to do that. I was like, Dan, please don't do this. Please. Like I've had talks with people and they're like, they don't want to blow it up. You know, Dan, he ran out of fucks to give a long, long time ago, right? And like I need to give him fucks so he can give them. And so he posted and he's got, you know, me in there, whatever. And then he's also got the pictures associated, you know, and then the phone, I guess it brings up the pictures associated with the guy. And there's like like semi-blurry nude pictures and shit like that. I'm just like,
so like, good.
It's like worst case scenario going on here. And then luckily, one spelled the guy, seen his last name right. It's Maloud or something like that, M-O-L-O-U-D or something like that. And then two, you know, somebody talked some sense into him that bringing this much publicity to this situation can hurt other people. And, you know, he decided to take it down.
All right, Dan, thanks again. Bill, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it. I think we're going to wrap up the show here, guys, too, probably, right? We had like another hour and a half of stuff as we usually do in the show document. But given that we did talk about this topic for quite a long time, we'll push that to next week. So thanks to everybody out there for tuning in on video. Daniel, you had something?
No, I was just saying, yeah, thumbs up.
There we go. All right. We will talk to you next week. Thank you.
Thank you.
Later, boys.